rival biker gang decided to turn the Yellowstone Ranch into their personal playground, they thought they were dealing with regular cowboys. Then Rip Wheeler pulled up. From unleashing a live bull inside a crowded bar to using a rattlesnake as a loaded weapon, here is every single time Rip Wheeler proved he is the most dangerous man on television. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why nobody, and I mean nobody, messes with the Yellowstone Ranch twice. Now, I don't know about y'all, but the first time I watched this man work, I had to pause the episode just to process what I'd seen. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's break down the legend of Rip Wheeler. Let's start with the moment that turns Rip from scary ranch hand into an outright legend. The Beck brothers, two corporate wolves who spent their whole run on this show underestimating the Duttons, decide the fastest way to hurt John Dutton is to go after his daughter. So they send two masked henchmen straight into Beth's office. Two attackers, one target. Should have been over in seconds. They didn't account for Rip Wheeler being in the building. Rip doesn't knock. He doesn't call for backup. By the time he reaches Beth, she has fought back fiercely and fatally wounded one of the attackers. Rip bursts in as the surviving gunman is about to kill her, takes a bullet, and kills the remaining attacker. And here's the part that turns this from an action scene into one of the most iconic moments in the entire series. After the smoke clears, after Beth continues lashing out at the attacker's body, Rip looks at Beth, the woman he's loved since they were teenagers, the woman who broke his heart, the woman he never thought he'd get back. And for the first time in the whole show, he tells her he loves her. Blood on the floor, glass everywhere. And the most terrifying man on the ranch just turned a crime scene into the most romantic moment of the series. So here's the real question. How does a guy who can put down two professional killers with a chair and his bare hands turn around and deliver a moment that soft? That's the contradiction that makes Rip Wheeler more than just a tough guy. And it's a thread we're going to keep pulling on throughout this whole video. Now let's rewind to a moment that's just pure, unfiltered chaos, because this is the scene that made half the internet lose their minds. Some of the ranch hands head into town for a night out, mind their own business, and end up getting jumped and beaten up at a local bar. Word gets back to Rip. Now, most guys in that situation would call the cops or at best show up with a gun, and even the odds. But Rip brought a trailer. Rip and Case Dutton pull up outside that same bar with a live bull loaded in the back of a stock trailer. And instead of walking in with fists raised, they open the gate and let a full-grown, furious bull loose inside a packed bar. Picture it, glasses shattering, tables flipping. Grown men climbing over the bar to get away from 1,500 pounds of pure muscle and horns. And while that bull is doing crowd control inside, Rip Case and the rest of the Yellowstone crew are waiting right outside the door with baseball bats. So the second the men responsible for jumping their ranch hands come running out, they finish the job on them too. This is the moment that tells you everything about how Rip operates. It's not just about winning the fight, it's about making sure nobody in that town ever thinks about touching a Yellowstone Ranch hand again. That's not revenge, that's a message. And it's frontier justice in its purest, most chaotic form. The kind of stuff that makes you say, wait, they actually did that? Out loud at your TV. So far, we've seen Rip go loud, trucks, bulls, broken glass. But this next moment shows you the other side of him, the side that plans. Enter Roarke Morris, a market equities executive, a corporate shark in an expensive suit who spent his entire arc thinking the Duttons were just stubborn ranchers standing in the way of progress. Roarke had the money, the lawyers, and the arrogance to believe he was untouchable. He'd never had to answer to anybody with dirt under their fingernails. He'd never met Rip Wheeler.
This yours? What? I found it up here on the bank.
Rip doesn't pull a gun. He doesn't raise his voice. He walks up with what looks like an ordinary cooler, the kind you'd bring to a tailgate, sets it down in front of Roarke, and opens the lid. Inside is a live rattlesnake. Rip shakes the cooler to agitate the rattlesnake, opens it near Roarke, and lets the snake lunge at him. The bite is instant, fatal. No trial, no negotiation, no corporate lawyer swooping in to save the day. Just old-fashioned frontier consequences delivered by a man who understood exactly how the wilderness could be turned into a weapon. This is the moment fans point to when they talk about Rip's enforcer mechanics, because it's not chaotic like the bar fight. It's calculated, symbolic. A man who grew up on this land, using the land itself to eliminate a threat. Rip remains there long enough to make sure Roarke is dead, then retrieves the cooler. Just a snake, a cooler, and a corporate villain who learned too late that money doesn't scare off something with fangs. Now, everything we've shown you so far proves Rip is dangerous. This next moment proves something different. It proves he's fearless. When Tate Dutton, John's own grandson, gets kidnapped as part of the Beck brothers' campaign against the Duttons, the rescue plan requires more than just guns and tactics. It requires someone willing to become a target. So Rip volunteers to ride his horse straight into open crossfire, on purpose. No cover, no armor, just him on horseback, riding directly into the kill zone to draw fire and help the team assess the number and positions of the armed men. Think about that for a second. This isn't a man losing his temper or reacting in the heat of the moment. This is Rip Wheeler making a calculated decision to become a walking, breathing target so that the rest of the team can locate the snipers and get Tate out alive. He survives it, because of course he does. But the fact that he was willing to make that call in the first place tells you everything about where his loyalty sits. This is the same man who beat down a biker gang and executed a corporate villain with a snake, willingly riding into Gunfire for his boss's grandson and a child he considers family. That's the duality this whole video keeps coming back to. Brutal enough to be terrifying, loyal enough to die for the people he loves. Let's go back to where we started, because that motorcycle intro wasn't even close to the whole story. When that California biker gang rolled onto Dutton land, thinking they'd found easy targets, they fought the ranch hands and figured that was the end of it. That's when Rip showed up and turned their bikes into scrap metal with his truck. But here's what a lot of casual viewers miss. The truck was just the opening move.
You're fucking dead, man.
Rip gets out, takes up a metal bar from his truck, and goes straight for the leader of the gang, beating him in front of his entire crew. Making sure the hierarchy in that parking lot is crystal clear. The bikers slink off, but they come back that night to set fire to the Duttons' field. And this time, John Dutton is waiting for them, with Rip standing right beside him. And then, instead of just running them off the property, John makes every single one of them pick up a shovel. John makes the bikers dig graves and confronts them with the threat of being buried there. Not to use them, to feel them. To understand, on a gut level, exactly how close they came to never leaving that ranch. And once the message sinks in, once they're standing in freshly dug holes, staring at their own mortality, John sends every last one of them packing out of the state, with Rip and the rest of the crew standing guard the whole time, making sure nobody forgets whose land this is. So here's the real question worth sitting with. What happens to trespassers who refuse to take the hint the first time? Apparently, they end up digging their own graves in Montana dirt before getting run out of state lines for good. That's not just winning a fight. That's making sure the story gets told for years. Every legend needs its origin, and for Rip Wheeler, that origin runs deeper and darker than almost anything else on this show. There's a cliff across the Montana border in Wyoming that the ranch hands call the train station. It's not a real train station. It's the place where problems on the Yellowstone Ranch stop being problems, permanently. The series does not establish a precise highway number or a specific length of time that Rip has operated there. As the ranch's longtime foreman and enforcer, Rip has helped dispose of people who threaten the Dutton family or know too much about the ranch's crimes. The rule is brutal but not mystical. The train station is where the Duttons hide the consequences of their violence. This is the piece of Rip's legend that separates him from every other tough guy on television. It's not one big dramatic showdown, it's years of quiet, disciplined, terrifying consistency. While other characters make one big mistake and get written off the show, Rip has spent years making sure the ranch's secrets stay buried, sometimes literally off the edge of that cliff. And that's what makes the train station more than just a scary location. It's proof that everything we've shown you in this video, the bull, the snake, the graves, isn't random. It's a pattern. It's a system. Rip Wheeler isn't just tough. He's one of the ranch's principal enforcers for much of his life on the Yellowstone. After everything we just walked through, the killings, the beatdowns, the 2 decades of loyalty soaked in dirt and blood, there's one moment that hits different from all the rest. John Dutton gives Rip his own house on the ranch. Now on paper, that sounds like a small gesture, a house. But remember where this story started. A traumatized young boy who killed the abusive man who killed his mother and brother with a frying pan after watching him murder his mother and brother, and who had nowhere left to go. John Dutton took him in, and Rip was later branded as part of his life and loyalty on the ranch. So when John finally gives him a house on the ranch through a heartfelt letter calling him his son, it's not just real estate. It's John Dutton looking at the most feared man in Montana and telling him, without saying it directly, that he's not just an enforcer anymore. He's family, officially, permanently. And that's the gut punch contrast this whole video has been building toward. This is a man who can put down 2 hitmen with a chair, throw a live rattlesnake at a man's face, and force an entire biker gang to dig their own graves. And the thing that actually gets to him, the moment that cracks his tough exterior, is hearing Beth read John's letter and realizing John has called him his son while giving him a house on land he's bled for since he was a teenager. That's Rip Wheeler in one scene, terrifying to his enemies, and finally home. Rip Wheeler went from a traumatized boy with a frying pan to the Yellowstone Ranch's feared foreman and enforcer. Every beatdown, every execution, every act of brutal loyalty traces back to that one night he had nothing left. And everything he built after that was about making sure nobody could ever take anything from him again. This video was researched and scripted by a real human, not an AI. Now I want to hear from you. Which Rip Wheeler moment gave you absolute chills? Was it the bull in the bar? The rattlesnake? Riding into that gunfire for Tate? Drop your favorite moment in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one. And check out our breakdown on the entire Dutton family right over here.